Supplemental Math Videos from Circle Christian School.
Chapter 1 Study Guide. An easy review is, remember to use your notes. Condense key points into 1 or 2 pages at most from your spiral. Look at the study guide just before the review exercises to fill in little gaps. Avoid cramming. Be sure to prime your brain. A little bit each day goes a long way. Here's your study guide. Start with your notes. Take a look at the Chapter 1 review. Looking at your notes from every lesson, try a practice problem. Use the back page, the blank pages, to just make discoveries from what you look at. Cute little discoveries. Don't say, hey, I know how to do it. Put down exactly what it is that you know how to do. Now start your study guide video notes. Prime your brain at least twice by looking over your notes for 15 minutes each time. Simple as that. Start with page 51, the big ideas. Remember that point A, B, and C is a place in space, a point. We use capital letters to show that there is a point. And of course we can go from point to point or through point to point. Any 2 points makes exactly one line. And there's infinitely many points in between. Note the difference between a line and a segment. A line has the arrows on it. A segment does not. Remember the geometry shorthand. Ray AB is just telling you to start at A and go through B. Angle A or angle BAC. And you go exactly in the order of the letters. B. The letter in the middle is always your vertex. A vertex is the place where the 2 rays meet. And C. And then, of course, we have polygons, and they get called polygon, E, F, G, H, I. And you just follow the letters around again. The points tell you what type of polygon it is. If I have 5 points or it's showing 5 points, then we have a pentagon, 6 points, a hexagon, so forth and so on. Know your shapes, know what your shapes do, and you'll do fine. All right, things like formulas. The deal here is when you have coordinates, use the recipe cards, use one of the formulas. Distance, or the length between 2 points, is that little owl guy. Remember to always make a template. I like to start with my little parentheses plus parentheses. Eyes, eyelashes, there's the power of 2. And then the eyes are shut because owls are usually sleeping. And it's the difference from the x's and the distance from the y's. This is actually just a twist on the Pythagorean theorem. And the midpoint formula, where's the middle? Is the average of the x's. And again, make yourself a nice little template here. Learn to memorize these because they will not give them to you on an SAT, ACT type of test, or even when you take a PERT test at college, an assessment test. They won't give them to you. They want to know if you know them. There's only 4 formulas. 3 forms, 4 formulas. You have cake in a box. You have an empty cake box. That means it equals 0. And you have the slope-intercept form. And I draw the little arrow here because that just means therefore. It's kind of like if you have this formula, then you get a third point. You get the middle. We call it x3, y3. Remember to label, 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 or you're not going to get that cupcake to the table. Very important. All right, here I want you to draw a pair of complementary angles. A pair of complementary angles. The key word or the key vocab here is complementary. Complementary starts with a C. Supplementary starts with an S. C comes before S. 90 degrees comes before 180 degrees. These are two of the most favorite geometry magical numbers. You're either going to take the algebra and go algebra plus algebra equals a magical geometry number, or you're going to go algebra equals algebra. These are the magical numbers, 90 and 180. When you draw a pair of complementary angles, you're doing that corner of the room, right angle, and it's always going to have the little box inside there. Complementary angles mean that they are adjacent to each other. They're hooked together. They share a common line. Complementary angles, because we can add angles, postulate number 4, the angle addition postulate, that when you add them together, they of course have to equal 90 degrees. Supplementary angles are two angles that make a straight line. They're also known as a linear pair, a pair of angles that make a line, a linear pair. And they have to equal 180 degrees. Usually a small one and a big one. Remember, you can't always measure them with your protractor. You have to know what the shape is doing. And then do the math by using the postulates, either adding the segments or adding the angles. Congruency is a key geometry property. Remember, the symbol for congruency is a sideways S. That means similar, same shape, and an equal sign, similar and equal to. All right, we're going to mark things up. Remember the 5 geometry strategies. The 5 geometry strategies. In the next slide, we'll talk about the 5 geometry strategies, but I'm going to show how it's important here. You're always going to draw a picture, and then I'm going to always write down what I've been given and what I have to find. And then we're going to label. We're going to mark things up. So we have that segment AB from A to B here is congruent to B to C. So I'm going to put 2 tick marks inside here, just like that. And that says that they're equal. The next thing that we have is that from A to B is 5 inches, so mark it up. Little lines up above there are showing distance or length. From A to D is 25 inches. All right, now I also like to show what it is that I have to look for. And what I have to find is from B to D. And I'll usually do those in green. Or you can use a highlighter, like a yellow highlighter would be perfectly fine. Actually touch it. Take your little pointer finger and go from B to D and go, this is what I have to find. All right, now we got to make geometry discoveries. We have to walk through our 5 steps, and number 4 says make geometry discoveries. Okay, so we know, number 1, that every segment has measure. postulate number 1. Postulate number 2 says we can add, which means you can subtract segments. Segment plus segment equals the whole big segment, which means the whole big segment, take away part of a segment, will give you the other part. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go, well, let's see if we take A to B here and we added from B to D here, we should be able to figure out how big the whole thing is, AD here. And now I'm just going to replace. I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to go plug it in. Let's see, I think I want some yellow. So A to B is 5 plus, and we don't know what BD is. And in algebra, that would be a variable. And A to D is 25. All right. And all great geometry students said, oh my goodness, BD must be 20 degrees. I mean, not 20 degrees, 20 inches. And then if we had to, we could figure out C to D by doing the same thing that we know from B to C is congruent to AB, so it's going to be the same size, which would mean from C to D would be 15. Now you know everything about that segment, and the segments on the line AD, and you can figure out all sorts of sizes. I like marking up everything and finding everything before I go and answer questions, because that way I can just go to the question and answer it automatically. I find out everything about the segment, the sizes of the smaller ones to the larger one, and then I move from there. Okay, so now we have angle EIH, which we see is a right angle because it has a box inside there. We have several other angles inside of it, and because of the angle addition postulate, we know we can add the smaller angles to equal the large angle. All right, I'm going to take the given and start marking things up. Angle GIH is congruent to angle FIG. So these two guys are congruent to each other. And the measure of EIH is 90 degrees, and it's shown by the box there. And the measure of GIH is 15 degrees. All right, going to go to my find. And again, I like, what I'm looking for. I got to physically touch, see what it is, where it's at. And we have EIF. So we're trying to find this guy right here, EIF, like so. Okay. So now I'm just going to plug in the rest of my information, stuff that I know, my geometry discoveries. Well, if angle GIH is 15, because it's congruent with angle FIG, we know it's 15. We know the whole angle here is 90 degrees, and I'm going to give it 3 tick marks here because it's different than the other two. So it's 90 degrees. And we know if we take the 15 and add it to the other 15 and add it to our third angle, altogether it would equal 90 degrees. So 90, take away the 30 here. That's where we get it. Here's where the 30 comes from. And we're just looking for the missing part. We find that angle EIF is 60 degrees. And so now I can find the measurement of all the angles. I could find EIG, which would be 75 degrees, and any combination otherwise. Mark it up, put everything in. even things that aren't totally given or what I call hidden givens, and identify what you're looking for. Very important. This is what you're going to do with any problem, especially if it's made up of words, does not have a picture. Number 1, draw a picture. Number 2, always put down what you've been given and what you have to prove. Number 3, label, 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 label. Mark it up. Even things that aren't in the given but you know are true. 4, make discovery or discover the relationships. What's the geometry? And that will allow you to plug it in. You'll be able to take the algebra and go algebra equals algebra, or algebra plus algebra equals a magical geometry number. Now we're going to use the chapter review to practice. It's almost like having a practice test. I have isolated a few that are very good to go and try, but you can also try others. I suggest studying or doing this part of the practice together with a study buddy. I think it's great for one study buddy to kind of find a problem or give a problem to the other study buddy and let them work it out, just like they were making a test for the other person. Remember, this doesn't have to be long and laborious. 15 minutes. By looking over it, doing a couple of the problems within the 15 minutes, you have primed your brain. Remember not to cram. On problems 4 through 8, it's drawing a plane. Practice drawing a plane. Practice putting 2 planes together. Number 9, you have a segment, and on number 9, what you're going to do is find the measurement. Segment addition postulate. Number 15, use a template. Either you're going to find midpoint, where's the middle, where's the end. Remember how we did it in our notes. Go back to your one note where there were 3 ways to find out where the middle and the end point is. The algebra way, using the midpoint formula. The coordinate plane way, putting it in a graph, folding it in half to find the middle or the end, or just use the count up way. What did it take to get to the middle? That's what it's going to take for the middle to get to the end. 21, angle addition postulate. What are you given? What do you have to find? Is it algebra plus algebra, or is it algebra equals algebra? Find x, but also make sure that you find or take a look at what they were asking for. Did you answer the question? Number 31 and 35, these are the ones where you're going to walk through and do your 5 geometry strategies. The answers are in the back of the book for all the odds. The only ones that you won't have are 4, 6, and 8. All right, get ready for the test. You can do it. I know, as long as you prime your brain and do some practices, you will do absolutely fine.